Hi, I'm back with another video about bringing your cat to Japan. I have another video that I posted that was kind of like going over the whole process of bringing our cat Moki from Seattle to Tokyo. And so that kind of goes over this entire flow chart here, really from microchipping her all the way till when I got off the plane and we went through the import inspection. So I feel though that I wanted to make another video because some of these first steps seem pretty obvious, and you get a microchip, rabies vaccine 1, rabies vaccine 2, 30 days later. You do the antibody test. You've got to be doing your 180-day period. But I just personally, when we went through this experience, step 6 and 7 and even kind of into 8, a little bit about 5 here. This is where I felt things started to get a little uncomfortable as far as the time periods that you had, and just a little, things seemed a little contradictory. So what I wanted to do was basically focus a little bit of kind of step 5 through 8 here, and talk a little bit more about getting the pre-export inspection and obtaining certificates. And then I wanted to also talk just much more in detail about our flight in general, and what the flight was like, and how I feel I got very lucky in a lot of different ways bringing Moki to Japan. But that doesn't mean that there aren't there's going to be different circumstances for everybody. So okay, so why don't we just kind of start there. So step 5 is advanced notification. And this one, really isn't too bad. Basically what you're doing is, in my case, we came into Haneda. And so we just emailed the airport and basically said, this is our flight and this is the day that we plan to arrive. And they said, okay, you're going to need some of these things. I can't remember everything that we talked about over the email. But that does mean that at the time that you send this, you do need to have your flight booked, and you do need to have told. For example, we went with Delta Airlines. Hey, I'm bringing my pet on the plane. What sort of arrangements do I need to make for that? Obviously, Delta, is a $200 fee for Moki to fly with me. They're going to make sure that they're going to hopefully tell you about the different crate criteria. Your cat needs to be under the seat on takeoff and landing, et cetera, et cetera. So again, kind of what I'm just echoing from my first video is be prepared and try to take care of these things as soon as possible. So this is not less than 40 days before. That doesn't mean you can't do it 60 days before, 90 days before. So again, it's really important to be proactive and be getting these things done, so that when you arrive, they're not asking you to, hey, we need to take little Moki or little Fluffy and put them in a crate for however long, or you need to go back home because something here is not correct. So be proactive. I kind of want to hit on that just because, for example, Delta Airlines, you can only fly in the economy class. You cannot take a pet, for example, in Delta 1 or the business class sections. And then on top of that, I believe you can only have 4 cats, or excuse me, probably 4 pets, between cats or dogs, I suppose, if you're bringing a dog, on a flight. So again, the earlier you can get your name in there, the earlier you can get your pet reserved for that, the better chance you're going to have of things just going smoothly. You don't want to be maybe scheduling it on day 41 before your flight, and then they go, oh, well, there's already 4 other cats or dogs that are going to be on the flight. Okay, so let's talk more about clinical inspection before departure. So what this is as it says, 10 days, within 10 days before boarding. So this is within 10 days of you, I believe, boarding the flight. Now, I'm going to, again, urge you to be cautious about this because I know what's written here, and we all see it here in English. But I booked my flight so that I was arriving and literally giving them my paper within 10 days. So even though there's a time difference between Seattle and Japan, and it's like 16, 17 hours depending on the time of year, I wanted it so that when I handed them that paper, they saw, I believe July 1st was when I took Moki in to do this, and then they were seeing it on the 10th in Japan. So there could have been, there were no questions about the validity of the clinical inspection. Because again, I understand, maybe you get on the plane on the 10th. Okay, that's within 10 days of boarding. You now arrive in Japan, and depending on where you're coming from, if you're coming from, for example, Hawaii, the time difference is even larger. They may say, well, this is 11 days, 12 days old, and it's yeah, but I boarded, and now you're getting into a bunch of minutia with somebody who maybe they don't know, maybe they haven't read this, maybe they don't know the rules. So again, it's just very important that you give yourself every advantage that you have, because again, you don't want to arrive and suddenly you have to go back home, or your cat has to go back home, something like this. So book I would recommend, booking giving yourself, maybe leaving on day 9, board within 9 days, and so that way you can arrive on the 10th day. Now, as far as this inspection goes, as is written here, so basically they're looking to make sure that your cat or dog is free of any clinical signs of rabies. That is true. That is what our vet looked for. But this is also kind of your last stop in with your vet before you're getting on the plane. So a couple of things are going to happen here. So one, this is, definitely, if you haven't had the conversation already, you want to, or hopefully you're just following up and maybe getting the meds. If you think your cat or dog or pet is going to need to be sedated on the plane, probably this is going to be your last time to get those meds. So again, if you haven't started the conversation, maybe make this appointment and make that a point when you make the reservation that I want to talk about this. My recommendation for this, and just my recommendation, is get them. I didn't end up having to use them, luckily. Moki was very, very good on the whole time. She was very, very quiet. She didn't cry. She didn't act out at all. So I didn't need them. But, you don't want to be in the middle of, Seattle to Japan is already, I think that's a 9-10 hour flight. Could be even longer for you, depending on where you're coming from in the world. And you don't want to have no options in the middle of the sky. So, and I understand, there's probably lots of different feelings and opinions about, using these sorts of sedatives on your pet. And if you end up not using it, that's fine. But I think it's very important that you give yourself an option. And let's just remember that this isn't about you per se. This is about making it as comfortable for your cat or your dog or whoever you're bringing. Put yourself in their position. I think personally they would want to be on a level that's as low stress as possible. And so if you have that option and you can give that to them, I think that's an advantage. And again, really what this process really comes down to is being methodical, being on time with everything, and giving yourself as many advantages as possible. So anyway, that is that. And then finally, it's checking their overall health. So for example, Moki, unfortunately, she had developed a UTI maybe a week before we were taking her in to get this inspection done. And that was very, very stressful. I was taking her into the walk-in clinic every single day. Long story short, luckily she recovered very well. She's doing very well now. And so I was a little worried that that may impact the vet's opinion of allowing her to travel. But at the time that I brought her in, the UTI had passed, and she was now eating and drinking and passing things just kind of on schedule, I guess you could say. So that was not a problem. And then so that's kind of the clinical inspection before departure, and my kind of just opinions, not professional or anything like that, just my experience and I how I did it and how I would do it again. So the next thing that has to happen, and I went over this in the other video too, but I'm going to go over it again just because this step really bothered me, and what really bothers me about it was kind of going back here to step 6, was this within 10 days before boarding. So basically this is just kind of, you go into your vet and they check out Moki or your kitty and make sure, okay, yep, they're okay, they're good, but that's just something between you and your vet, really. That's nothing that gets passed on to immigration or Japan or anything like that. And so it was this next step where you actually, or excuse me, not you, but your vet is actually going to be submitting to the and in the U.S. I believe it's APHIS, the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service or something like that. They're going to be submitting all of these documents that you've been putting together. So the microchipping, the rabies vaccinations that you've done, the antibody test, the pre-export inspection that was just done in step 6, any other vaccinations that they might have had. So they're going to put all this together. And there's a couple other forms here, forms AC that you have to fill out. And what I didn't like about this is, and you can even see here, like, look at all this stuff. And everything else has been kind of, you've had a little bit of time, 40 days before the flight and 180-day quarantine, and we're getting this all done. And suddenly there's this 10 days where I'm like, how is, and so this is supposed to be getting sent into a government agency, which, maybe not the best reputation for getting things done on time. And then I'm supposed to receive this back before I go on my flight. And without this, this is kind of basically what this is. Again, as I've kind of stated, everything up until now has really just been between you and your vet. And although, I'm sure your vet is probably licensed and all of these things, that doesn't really mean much to the Ministry of Foreign I don't know, whichever ministry in Japan is taking agriculture and these kinds of things. That doesn't mean anything. Those are totally two different governing bodies. So what this is actually again, APHIS basically is going to go in and check, is your vet licensed? Is all of this paperwork in order? That means something when you hand it over at immigration. When you've landed. That is basically, you don't meet these people, you don't go to their office, they don't ever look at Moki or your pet. They're just basically taking all of this stuff that your vet has sent them and saying, yes, this vet is, a vet, and they, we say they did go to school. And again, this is, as far as I understand, this is the kind of the government body that Japan does actually recognize. And so that government body is giving you the okay, saying everything that this person has done up till now has been approved and is certified. So that's kind of, I think, the point of this step. By the way, everything I just said is just my, I'm just kind of theorizing. I'm just kind of going off of why you would even have to do this. It seems everything else has been very on the up and up until now. So if that's wrong, then that's fine. That's totally wrong. Please correct me. But that seems to be the point of everything that I was getting. So this step should go pretty easily as long as your vet is able to log in to the APHIS website. And then what they would do is I believe they scan everything and get it all nice and in order, and then they send it on off to them. Two things I'm just going to mention here. So the number one is do your best, if you can, to try and double check all of this paperwork. So for example, when it came to, I think, the rabies vaccinations, when I was checking the paperwork, I noticed that the one vaccination given for one thing, and I think the second kind of vaccination given for the second, those had been flipped. And so I had to get back in touch with my vet and go, hold on, we need to change this, because again, if that doesn't maybe match the certificates that you're holding, there's going to be questions. And again, at the end of the day, what you're trying to avoid are any kind of questions. You want to show with it, there's no doubt that you have followed all these steps and that you are good to bring, little Moki into Japan. So now, in my case, second thing here, and I believe I talked about this before, my vet, when I brought this in, was unable to log into their service. So again, this really stressed me out because, again, we're talking about 10 days before boarding, in my case 9 days before boarding, and I went in on July 1st, which was a Friday, second is a Sunday, second is a Saturday, third is a Sunday, 4th of July was a Monday. Obviously that's going to be a national holiday in the US. So already I was looking at only having maybe 5 days before I needed to receive my, this certification information back. So what I had to do is we had to do everything old school. We had to do it by mail. So again, that was, my vet kind of got everything together, gave me all the paperwork, and then that's when I went through it and found that, that mistake. So I had to really hound them. It took about 3 hours of calling back, and I felt terrible because I know vets are busy and I know they have emergencies, but I was also having an emergency as well. So eventually I was able to get it in and get the paperwork corrected and get it sent off. What I had to do was I immediately went to UPS, who is not my favorite, but that's who was available. So use what you need. But I had to buy 2 next day, basically envelopes, and say, one of them addressed from me to APHIS, the other one addressed from APHIS back to where I was going to be staying up until my flight. Took the one from APHIS to me, folded it, put it in the other one that I was sending from myself to APHIS, and just, old school stuff. So put all the paperwork in there, went over it, 20 times to make sure everything looked good, and then dropped it in the mail. And also I did put a note in there, and anybody who works at APHIS, you guys did a great job. Thank you very, very much. But I was very stressed out about making sure I was going to get this back in time. So I think I put that all into the mail on Friday, and hopefully thinking it might even get there Saturday. Maybe UPS would at least deliver it on Saturday, and then even if nobody's in there Sunday, Monday, well, okay, hopefully first thing Tuesday somebody comes in and sees it, and maybe even gets it back out. So tracked it, and UPS did not deliver it until the following Tuesday, or Tuesday afternoon or something. I think it was very, very stressful because, again, I'm sitting here thinking, how long is this going to take? Long story short, there, I believe on the Wednesday or the Thursday, my flight was on Saturday. I did get the thing back. There was no communication. There was no phone calls, there was no email. All I could do was really, check the tracking information. So don't expect anybody to be calling you or talking to you. But in the end, I did get it back. I think, like I said, I think I got it back Thursday, which gave me, to again, Thursday, Friday, I could go over all my paperwork again, just make sure it was going to be there. So I hope you don't have to go through that. I hope your vet is able to log in and doesn't have to, make you go through the physical paperwork thing. And here's the thing, I get it. I work in IT, so I know things break, and I know that it's not always easiest to get maybe support right when you need it. So anyway, long story short, we did get it all done. Okay, so let's now talk about the actual flight to Japan. So I left from Seattle and flew direct to Haneda. The flight is about 9 hours or 9.5, 10 hours, I think. And what we did is the night before, so Friday night, my mom and I drove down to Seattle and just stayed at a hotel that allowed me to have Moki with us. I fed her up until, I believe, dinner that night on Friday night. And then after that, it was really just water. So there was unfortunately no breakfast the next day. If I remember correctly, I think she did poop before, between that dinner and kind of getting her all put together for the flight. So I wasn't too worried about her being uncomfortable or anything on the plane. So the hotel was very, very close to the airport, so we just drove over to the airport. Brought Moki with me up to the check-in, and if anything, this was still very kind of heavy COVID times, and so if anything, there was more questions about myself than Moki, and got that all kind of squared away. As far as I remember, I don't believe that the check-in desk really even looked at any of my documents. I think maybe they asked me if I had them, and maybe I think I was ready to show it to them. But I think in their case, they just go, I think their job is just to be like, okay, does he have the pet reservation? Yes or no? And then, it's up to them, to me, to make sure I have my paperwork correct. It's not really the check-in gates person's job to go through it and make sure it's all there. I don't think that's in their realm of responsibility. So went through that, gave my mom a hug, and went through. I think I had TSA pre-check. So went to the TSA pre-check line to go through security. Now, when going through security, let me talk a little bit about bags and when it comes to what you're bringing on the plane, your pet is the priority, 100%. So I had Moki, she had her crate, and then I think as much as we could in the crate, we had, like her portable litter box, and I had a little, dish for water. But then in my bag, I had, a Ziploc bag full of litter, and I had a Ziploc bag full of some food, so that when we got to the other side, we could, feed her as quickly as possible. Obviously, I had some water, even though, there may well be water on the plane. And I think I did have a couple of treats. And the reason I have these is kind of getting back to the idea of maybe you might need to sedate your cat. So it's a good idea to maybe, have something. They're going to be hungry. So if you have something that, if you can put that pill in, that will probably make it easier. So my point being, though, is that make it easy on yourself. Make your pet the priority. Don't bring your PlayStation 5 or something in your carry-on luggage. Hello, Minaju. This is a Minaju. We got her after we got here. Don't, everything, it's about your pet if you're bringing them on the plane, or it should be. So I'm not saying don't bring, obviously your phone, your iPad, maybe your laptop. I'm not saying don't bring something so that you can't be entertained as well. But my point is don't bog yourself down with tons and tons of carry-on items and bags. I had Moki in her cart, Hello, Minaju. Yes. And then I had my just a really like a one sling backpack, and that had everything else in it. So the reason for that I'm saying all of this is that if you need to pick up and go somewhere or something like this, your cat's already going to be stressed out enough. You don't want to be jostling them around because you have a backpack and a handbag and your pet. Make it easy on yourself. Just make your cat the priority. Bring a little bit for yourself, of course, but other than that, put it in the check-in and just forget about it. Make it easy on yourself. And going through security, this was pretty important because I was able to just take the I put Moki down, took the bag off, put it in the thing, emptied out my pockets. I was wearing one of those, I guess, cat sweaters where it has the big pocket in the front, because at least in Seattle, you must take your pet out of the carrier and hold them as you go through the metal detector X-ray machine. So I took out Moki, I put her in the little pocket. She normally hates that little pocket, but she was very, very nervous and very, very stressed out. So luckily she was pretty good. Everybody thought it was very, very cute, which was nice, but a little bit annoying because I'm like, she's really scared, everybody. So put her in there. Everything goes through. And then put her back in the cage, and we got through. So luckily there wasn't a lot of drama or anything there. The other thing then is I headed towards my gate, and at this time I did have a lounge pass, and so this is kind of where I started to get a little bit lucky with my travel. So I went to the lounge just expecting that, hey, this is going to be a quieter area. I don't mind going off into a corner, and I can maybe give her a little bit of water or something like that, see if she needs to go to the bathroom, set up her thing. It turned out the day that I was going and taking my flight, the lounge was actually kind of right in the middle of moving. They were going to a different floor or something. So they were actually occupying both floors. And the one that I went into, there was literally, there was like a table and like a chair, and then that was it. And nobody was in it. There was just nobody in there. Everybody, I guess, the difference is on that floor they still had a liquor license, and so they could still serve beer and these kinds of things in that area. The other area was where they had all the food and all these kinds of things. So it was, I think it was 10 in the morning, so nobody was really drinking at that point. And so I kind of had this whole area for myself. So I was able to put her on the ground and open up all the sides, and she could run around a little bit like that. And then our carrier does have like a little leash attached to it. So I just kind of attached it to the ring on her collar, and I did open it so that she could kind of go around. Having said any of that, I do not recommend taking your pet out of its carrier. This was a very, very special circumstance. I just wanted to, allow Moki to have the most comfortable trip she could, and so that is why I did that. Let her drink a little bit of water, but also she was very kind of again stressed out, and so she really didn't venture out very much. So I would say don't expect that your cat is going to be like at ease really almost at any point during this process. So that was very nice. I think during that whole time, like one other person might have come in there, and then otherwise it was just the lounge employee, and I had the whole thing to myself really all the way up until getting on the plane. Point two that I got lucky on, and maybe airlines do this, I don't know, but Delta, whether they really did this or not, I don't know, but they kept the seat next to me open. So nobody was sitting next to me. On takeoff and landing, of course, Moki still had to go under the seat in front of me. But once that was done, I could take her. I could take the crate, her carrier, and put it in the seat next to me, and then unzip it just a little so that I could get my hand in there to pet her and just check how she's doing and see that she's okay. And the story there was basically she was great the whole trip. She did not cry. She did not try to get out of the cage. I didn't really give her much water or anything. She didn't really seem to need it. She just was very kind of, okay, this is happening. Um, Again, and this is kind of going back to that visit with your vet. Again, know your pet. Get those sedatives if you think you're going to need it. I hate traveling. I don't like the screaming babies on planes, and I think giving yourself any option that you need in the air is a good idea. So if you need to get something that maybe will help knock out your pet, then maybe that would be the best thing. Minaju, our other cat, I would not imagine she would take the flight very well. We've taken her on the train a couple of times, and she's very, very vocal. She's very, very she really wants you to know that she's not having a good time. Moki was great. So once we were done, I arrived at Haneda Airport and went through and got to the the baggage claim area, where everybody was getting their bags. And I can't remember if I had to approach the guy or if one of the import employees approached me, but on one of the far walls was kind of the area. And so that was when I brought in and handed them all of the documents. They looked at it, and then they had kind of another certificate that they had already created based on all the information that I had sent them. But they did have my name wrong, so they had to make a small correction. They left the A out of my name. So, but then they looked over the documents. We went into a room where I think they might have inspected Moki. I think I took her out, and yep, that's a cat. And then put her back in. It's a calico cat. So put her back in. And really, that was it. Once they took all of my documents, so all of the stuff that you've been kind of saving up and preparing for over the last year or 6 months, they'll take it and they'll give you a certificate. And that, basically, from my understanding, that certificate is now kind of saying Moki or your pet is Japan certified. So if you take them to a vet or something like that, then they'll be able to they'll have the microchip and all that kind of stuff. So okay, that was probably a lot longer than I needed it to be, but I hope that it's helpful to people. Again, that 10-day thing really just didn't sit right with me, and that's because it's very stressful. It's not a lot of time, especially if something goes wrong, especially if there's some sort of event or something that comes up, like your vet can't log into the APHIS system. But I hope and I encourage, if there are still some questions, please let me know. Otherwise, good luck with bringing your dog or cat to Japan. Definitely a very good country, I think, for cats, especially. So, all right, thank you very much.